how to crash an economy, of course. In today's case, we are going to look at, of course, Zimbabwe. You know, in fostering economic stability, factors like diversified industries, a key skilled workforce, prudent scale management, and of course, transparent financial regulations play critical roles when it comes to this. Additionally, fostering innovation, ensuring access, of course, to education and healthcare facilities. On top of that, you have to maintain a stable political environment. All these are key factors to a robust economy. By understanding and also implementing these factors, most nations can build a resilience against what? Against economic crisis and pave the way for long-term prosperity. Question is, have you ever wondered how a country can go from being an economic powerhouse to actually facing one of the most or the worst financial crises in history? Imagine a place where money loses its value so quickly that people carry wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Then, my dear, welcome to Zimbabwe, and this is the Zimbabwe's story. A series of decisions, that led to the collapse of an economy. An entire economy fell down just because of mismanagement. Zimbabwean citizens during the peak of the crisis, they shared all these very difficult problems. But the question is, how does a country go from an economic prosperity, relatively, to complete collapse? Let's dive in and find out. Welcome, and my name is Uzoma, like you know, and welcome to a Financial Savvy. Zimbabwe is a case study that serves as a stark reminder of how fragile economies can be. Understanding this collapse is crucial, not just for economists or historians, but for everyone. But why? But that's because it provides an insight into the causes and the consequences that apply to any country, even in ours here. In this video, I will take you through the rise and also the fall of the Zimbabwe's economy, explaining key events and decisions that led to its downfall. By the end, I hope you will have a deeper understanding of what went wrong and lessons we can all draw from this collapse. Now, my question is, why should you care? You should care because it's not just about Zimbabwe's economy. It's about world understanding, whether you are a student, a professional, or someone who's simply curious about global affairs. There are valuable lessons here for all ages. The collapse teaches us about the importance of sound economic policies, political stability, and good governance. Factors that are crucial for any nation's prosperity. So, I hope you stick around this time and find out what happened. Now, before the collapse of Zimbabwe economy, Zimbabwe was actually doing quite well. The country's economy was primarily driven by agriculture and mining, and also tourism. Imagine vast farms of lands producing abundant crops and bustling mines extracting valuable minerals. During this period, Zimbabwe enjoyed relative prosperity and, of course, stability. Now, figures like Cecil Rhodes played a significant role in shaping the early economic landscape. For years, Zimbabwe was often referred to as the breadbasket of Africa. There was a reason for this, but that's because of its agricultural output. But then, what happened? Things started to change. The late 90s marked the beginning of the political unrest and corruption that began to chip away at this prosperity. One major turning point was land reform policies initiated by President none other than Robert Mugabe in 2000. Actually, these reforms aimed to redistribute land from white commercial farmers to black Zimbabweans. While the intention, I might say, was noble, the execution was anything but smooth. Political instability and corruption reigned galore. It became more evident, and these were just the early signs that trouble was brewing. Now, what are some of the factors that led really to this economic downfall? The land reforms. Let's talk a little bit about these land reforms. Those land reforms started in 2000. The government began forcibly seizing land from experienced commercial farmers. This policy, of course, had an immediate effect and devastating effect for that matter on the agricultural productivity of this country called Zimbabwe. The farms that actually once produced ample food now laid barren. Skilled farmers left the country, taking their expertise with them. As a result, agricultural land plummeted, leading to food shortages and skyrocketing prices for basic amenities and necessities. Well, as if things weren't bad enough, the government policies soon led to what? They soon led to hyperinflation, one of the most feared and extreme cases in modern history. By 2008, inflation rates were so high that prices doubled every few hours. I mean, every few hours. Can you imagine that? But you can imagine dollar notes being used just to go and purchase everyday goods. Can you imagine a world where you need trillions of dollar notes just to buy your groceries? Well, this is the case of Zimbabwe. It affected daily people's life. People lost their savings overnight. Salaries became worthless because of this. Before they could even be spent, it was total chaos. Political instability was rampant. Corruption was the order of the day. This made matters worse. Now, Mugabe's government exacerbated economic issues, of course. Instead of them to solve them, this policy that took made things worse. For instance, corruption permeated in every level of society, from top government officials to local ones, embezzling funds, local authorities, and demanding bribes for basic services. Now, international sanctions had to be imposed as a result of this, isolating Zimbabwe further and crippling its already fragile economy. The consequences of this economic collapse. Here we are. We had what? Total humanitarian crisis. Now, this human cost of this economic collapse was quite enormous. It was widespread. There was widespread poverty and unemployment ensued, leaving millions struggling to survive. Heart-wrenching images showing families living in poverty-stricken conditions. Basic services like healthcare and education deteriorated so fast that before you could say Jack Robinson, hospitals even ran out of supplies, schools couldn't even afford books or to even pay teachers. Personal stories abound, Families torn apart by hunger, children dropping out of school just because they couldn't afford to pay their school fees any longer. The suffering was immense. Faced with such dire conditions, most people at home began to take drastic decisions. Zimbabweans sought better opportunities where abroad. This led to a massive exodus known as the brain drain, where skilled professionals left the country in search of greener pastures. There was a long line of people in the airport and looking for passport approvals. Doctors, engineers, teachers all left Zimbabwe in droves. This brain drain had long-term effects on the country's ability to recover, of course, economically. Since those people had already gone, then we had what we call economic isolation too. things, Zimbabwe became like an outcast. Economic isolation meant that foreign investment dried up, making recovery, of course, even more challenging. Most business closed and there were empty markets. There were attempts, of course, at recovery through foreign aid and interventions and various other economic policies. But without substantial international aid support or internal reform, these efforts actually fell short. So, what can we actually learn from Zimbabwe's economic collapse? That's my question. First and foremost, I'd say sound economic policies are crucial for any nation's stability. Political stability and good governance are equally important. They are, as I might say, like the pillars holding up a building. If one of them crumbles, the whole structure starts to reverberate or shake. We learned also that corruption can destroy even the most prosperous of economies from within. And finally, international cooperation is vital. No country can thrive in isolation. Now that most of you have heard about Zimbabwe's story, I encourage you to learn more about global economic history because understanding these topics can help us prevent similar crises elsewhere. I recommend you, and I'm going to drop some links for which some books through which you can look around and get some insights. Now you can support us by not forgetting to click on the subscription button, to give us a like, and always keep abreast with us. I thank you so much to have watched and to have followed me on this journey into the collapse of Zimbabwe. We are going to come with much better updates when it comes to the global economy. More contents like this are important, I know, to the masses and to most young ones outside there. And like John Kane Smith said, that the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas, but actually in escaping from the old ones. That's food for thought.